Welcome to your guilty pleasure. Surprise! This is the Salty Goddess podcast. I'm Ann Margaret Perry, and this is our St. Patrick's Day special episode. Be sure to subscribe, follow, share, and download because everybody deserves a little bit of that, secret special something. What are we going to talk about today? Well, let's get to it. First of all, Slainte, for those of you that celebrate and partake of the Irish holiday of the year, St. Patrick's Day. The audaciously authentic savage. Little bit of sweet on the surface, and the depths is a little bit of bite. Just like me. 1.5 shots of Jameson, 6 ounces of Moscato. And usually there are dark cherry maraschino cherries in this mix, but I planned poorly. I have no dark maraschino cherries, so I had to use regular maraschino cherries. And that's actually what this is about today. Poor planning. Now listen, some of y'all spend more time picking out an outfit to go out with the individual who has a Ford parked in their driveway. I'm here to tell you that the amount of time that you spend preparing for your date is the same amount of time you should be spending preparing for pretty much everything you got going on in your life. I know, boring. Oh, you're spontaneous? Wonderful for you. Bullshit. Okay? Poor planning results in an inability to meet deadline and deliver those deliverables that you're expected to deliver. How do you like that? Deliver, deliverables, and deliver. It's the truth. Now, you don't have to be obsessive compulsive about planning. You have to still be able to handle things that take place that are unexpected, but you always should have a plan for how you're going to handle those things. So I'm actually calling myself out here because for those of you that listened to last Wednesday's podcast, it sounded like crap. Content was amazing. Delivery sucked. And I'm here to tell you there's a reason why. Because of poor planning on my part. So yeah, even at my old age, my advanced age, in my geriatric self, I still make errors. I still fail to plan accordingly. So hadn't been feeling well, not an excuse. I don't listen to excuses, ladies and gentlemen. That's crap. Excuses do not absolve you of responsibility. So you can proffer every single one of them and tell me, or, throw out there that, oh, I wasn't feeling well. My car broke down, my this, my that, blah, blah. Okay, listen, you need to plan. You need to have a plan of action in the event that something untoward takes place. So anybody who follows me on LinkedIn or is connected with me on LinkedIn or on Facebook will know that I posted last week right after last week's episode went live. It went live late, by the way, because of my crappy planning abilities for last week. And I very easily could have claimed, technology did me in again. But that leaves me sitting in that hood I told y'all I don't like living in, which is victimhood. I want to take accountability and responsibility. And those around you that watch you take accountability and responsibility, it actually builds respect and it builds authority. So you have to take accountability for your shitty planning. I had really, really crappy planning last week. Horrible. And I didn't have a backup plan. nor did I have a backup plan for the backup plan, which is usually what I do. And a lot of people will be like, gosh, you spend an awful lot of time worrying about contingencies. What if, what if, what if? But when you are a logistical person or a project planner, or you have a list this long every single day of things that you must accomplish, you must have a plan. Now, is it boring? It can be boring. It can be boring always having a plan, always following that plan, and never having what some individuals would call spontaneity and things of that nature. But I'm here to tell you that that's okay. But at least you'll always be prepared. So if you have deadlines and timelines and deliverables, and other people are waiting on those deliverables, you must plan how you're going to execute your day, your week, your month, your schedule to meet those deadlines, because that's the responsible thing to do. So this is the tool for your toolbox this week: planning, having a contingency plan, and potentially even having a contingency plan for the contingency plan, or as I call it, a backup plan for the backup plan for the backup plan. Those of you that know me personally know that when I travel, I take a laptop or two, a tablet or two, and I have 3 cell phones. I have cords and cords and cords and cords. And I do that because I am responsible and accountable for multiple deadlines, multiple deliveries for multiple other entities. And those are just my professional responsibilities. Never mind the personal responsibilities that I also have. And there's a ton of those as well. So I consistently have backup plans and contingency plans for many things. Some of you might call that a level of anxiety. Some of you might call it ridiculous. Listen, it's what works for me. And I have a rigid schedule that I love to keep to. But I will tell you that usually by 10 a.m., that schedule has been blown to shit, and I have to start all over again. I have a book, and I also have electronic versions as well. But I find that writing, I talked about that in one of my other episodes, writing helps for me to retain that information. So I have a book. It's got lists. I rewrite the list every day. Hopefully, one day I will get to the list and there will only be this on the page. But 7 days a week, I have a list. 7 days. So when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I don't remember who said it, but it is the truth. It is the truth. And you must have contingency plans. You're going to hear me say this over and over again, over and over and over and over again. But it's important, and it's how successful people become successful and remain successful. It's simple. Anything that's important, there's a contingency plan for. Now, our government here in the United States calls it a succession plan. In other words, if anything happens to the leader, there's a backup. And it goes down literally a flowchart tree for who goes second, third, fourth, and how it all goes. I want you to think about that for a second. If it is so important that there's a plan for it, don't you believe you should also have a contingency plan like that, a succession plan? Because you should. And this is how you stay on track. This is how you keep everything organized. And I've learned this throughout the years. I used to be one of the most disorganized people you will ever work with. And I resisted someone's attempts to get me organized until I realized all I was doing was fighting myself and sabotaging myself. and sabotaging my success and meeting deliverables and deadlines. So if you're serious about those deadlines, if you're serious about those deliverables, if you're serious about improving yourself, planning is the start. Now, do you need a fancy pen? Do you need a fountain pen to write your list? No, you can write it with a damn crayon if you want to. Go right ahead. You don't need a fancy hardcover book that you carry in your handbag everywhere you go. You can use a piece of blank paper. You can use the backside of a printed letter that you received in the mail that you no longer need. Doesn't matter. There are ways to make this work. I prefer a book that I can't miss, can't forget whether or not it's in my handbag or not. That's one of my contingency plans. I prefer writing with an old school pen. It's just my preference. But I've written notes with colored markers, highlighters, whatever I've had available to me at the time. You don't need anything fancy. You can use a phone. I'm pretty sure most of us carry one. You can download free apps where you can put your list in there. You can text yourself a list. But then you have to remind yourself to make sure you look at it. And you look at it frequently and you update it and rewrite it as appropriate. So those are my suggestions for how you stay on target. It's also how you become successful. If you're consistently forgetting things, if you're consistently not planning for things, you're missing out. So this is another tool for your toolbox. Find a way in which you are able to organize yourself. You don't need fancy apps. You don't need fancy pens. You don't need fancy books. You don't need fancy props. Okay? Do what makes you comfortable, but start down that road. It takes time to make habits. It takes time to break habits. So the best thing that you can do is start today and get moving on it. And that's what happened last week. I felt like crap. I didn't record my episode. I took the time to purchase some fancy equipment for my studio, set it all up, failed to double check, triple check, and quadruple check that there weren't going to be any hardware conflicts or software conflicts. And what happened? When I got ready to record my podcast, none of my stuff would work. And I was on a time crunch. So I ended up recording, not using my normal platform. You'll notice last week there was no intro or outro music. Okay. And on some platforms, the volume of the podcast came in and out, in and out. It sounded like it was skipping words. Again, the content was great, but the delivery was terrible. It was terrible. And I can say that because I know that about myself. I know what I did. I know what went horribly wrong. But I wouldn't be my authentic self if I didn't take the time to call myself out and prove and show you that I am not above making an error. I'm not above admitting I made an error. Okay. Immature people can't admit that they're wrong about something or that they said something in error. That there's a lot to be said for the person who cannot do that. Because we all do it. We all do it. So grow up. Be an adult. Learn to admit when you don't know something. And don't be afraid to not know something. There's stuff I don't know. And when I don't know, it's actually my motivator to go and learn about it so that I can know. So that the next time someone comes to me and says, Anne Margaret, I was trying to learn how to do this. I didn't know how to do it. I can go back and go, I learned exactly that a couple weeks ago. Here are my notes. Here's where I went to get some more information. Here are my resources. Here are the links, etc. Because at the end of the day, that is my goal. Not me here telling you how great I am because I learned something. It's to show you that each of us continues to learn until the day we die. When you can't do that, when you can't admit that you don't know something, when you can't admit that you need to learn something new, I look at you and think, you're still 12. And I'm not going to come to you for advice. I'm not going to come to you for knowledge. I'm not going to, because your value in those respects, you're still a great person probably, but you don't have the acumen that's needed to guide me. So understand it. And to me, those exchanges are a waste of what? My most valuable currency. My most valuable currency being time. The one thing we cannot replenish. Once it's gone forever. You'll never get it back. So, you see how all of this ties into one another? It does. I wasn't even going to do this podcast, this episode. I decided to do it because I screwed up last week, and y'all deserve better. Slainte. So, each and every single one of us deserves better. And what we deserve better, what we've earned that's better, is a better version of ourselves today than we were yesterday. That's what we've earned. Our competition should always be with ourselves, not with anybody else around us. And that competition should be improving ourselves in one way, shape, or form every single day. Whether it's improving our compliance with our planning and our scheduling and our deadlines, that's simple. That's super simple to do every single day. It might be this incremental that when the alarm went off this morning, you got up and stood on your feet and got right to it, versus turning off the alarm, rolling back over, and falling back asleep, or hitting snooze. I don't even use the snooze. I do use backup alarms. I have 2 alarms set on 2 different devices. That way, I know I'm going to wake up. I have to shut off 2 different ones. One is by touch, one is by voice. Okay. So yeah, I need backup plans because in the realm of reality, anything can happen. There could be a power outage and my one alarm won't go off. I could have failed to charge one of my cell phones and it fails to go off. So you need a backup plan. And it's really funny because sometimes I'll compare myself to Dr. Strange. Is it Strangelove from that one movie? Gosh, help me all. Avengers. That's what it is. I don't watch television or movies very often, so you'll have to excuse me for not being able to quote them the way that I should. But Dr. Strange looks through time and sees, and at one point in the movie, he says he can see 47,000 different eventualities, potential eventualities. Now, you don't have to go to that extreme, but you need to know what the eventualities can be for your plan, for your deadlines, for your deliverables. And you have to have a way to bypass a barrier, overcome an obstacle. Okay? When you're on your way to work in the morning and there's a road shut down, do you know an alternative path to get to your place of employment? The same thing. That's a contingency plan. That's a backup plan. And everybody has to have one. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a backup plan for doing the dishes or doing your laundry or any of those things. But hey, do y'all know where the laundromat is in your town, your city, or your village? I actually do not know where there is one in my town here in Lancaster, South Carolina. But in my main house, I have a laundry room. And in my office building, I have a laundry setup. So I do have a backup plan. Makes sense? Kind of why they started putting extra bathrooms in homes, right? Powder room, just in case one's being occupied, somebody else can use the other one. It sounds silly. I know it does. Y'all have a spare tire on your car? There's a reason why some things are automatically built in. So in your main life and in all the things that you do every day, you should have a spare tire in your car. If you get what I'm saying, you need to have a backup plan. Why do we have two vehicles? Yep, there might be two drivers. Do you have a third vehicle? Sometimes. It all depends. I have two vehicles and I rarely leave my property other than to travel and things like that, but I don't drive to my job every day. I won't. Okay. So it just makes common sense to me. Do you have just a single bar of soap in your home? Maybe you do. I would suggest having two. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. And I promise you that once you start your contingency planning and you have a backup plan, then you know for a fact you will be prepared. And it also won't end up causing undue stress and anxiety. Why would you want to be unnecessarily stressed out if you don't have to be? So having that contingency plan helps to alleviate anxiety and stress. Well, I can't get to work this way, but I know that if I go this way, as long as there's not a road shut down, I should be fine. Think about what I'm saying. And anybody that's not working, is not, yet an, full-fledged adult or a person of majority, as we should say, like obviously over the age of 18. If you're under the age of 18 and you're listening in, you can start implementing this now. This way, by the time you're 20, 21, 18, you'll be an expert and you can start guiding other people and how to make these things happen. So your call to action this week, or what I'd like y'all to think about, is how can I start thinking like Dr. Strangelove? How can I start putting together a contingency plan? Contingency plans don't always cost anything either. Obviously, having a couple of cell phones and, by the way, having a backup phone in case one of the three that I carry with me actually breaks. All of those things, some things do cost money. I think that makes sense to most of us. But does it cost money to make sure there's air in your spare tire? Or make sure that it doesn't have dry rot? No, those things don't usually cost money. They cost time, and that's part of your most valuable currency. However, I dare to say that poor planning actually burns through more of your most valuable currency, which is your time, because you don't have a backup plan. And then you're running around without that plan, and that expends more of your time. So be wise. Plan ahead. Okay? And just remember, if you bought a Ford, you failed to plan, because I promise you it's going to break down. So please run along, get yourself a Chevrolet, a GM, Oldsmobile, something, but not a Ford. Spend your time wisely, ladies and gentlemen. Please do, by all means, because time, and I'm going to say this till the day I die, which could be tomorrow, who knows? Spend that currency carefully. Don't just blow through it like you have gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of it. Okay. Because we don't. And we don't know how much time we've got. So look through and start thinking about those contingency plans and then start applying them to everything in your everyday life and in everything that you do. And I don't care if it's even just a plan for washing your car. You're going to obviously plan for a sunny day. You're not going to wash your car in the rain. Okay. So then you assemble all of the things that you're going to need prior to needing to wash your car. That makes sense. Because if you need to wash your car, why would you want to drive to the store or go online and have to order? Because I don't like having to go to the store. So you want to have everything together. Everything is about planning. You plan more frequently than you realize you do. So you should start applying it to every single thing and be methodical about it and be efficient about it and optimize that efficiency so that when you are working on those items, you get better, 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 and you're not blowing through that most valuable currency that you have. So now that I've kind of beaten that horse completely dead, we're all going to start planning, right? There isn't a single party that ever took place without planning. So if you're willing to spend time planning those things, why wouldn't you plan every single day? Why wouldn't you plan, you plan your vacations, right? You plan your excursions, all of your things, everything. So it should be applied to pretty much everything. And that's what we should all be attempting to do because we'll be more efficient. We'll be more effective. Things won't fall through the cracks. And imagine that with great planning comes meeting deadlines, being more efficient, being able to accomplish more. And all that's going to do is boost your self-esteem. What more could you ask for? So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who have children, start working on it with your children as well. I know you plan your day when you have children. What time you have to get up in the morning, packing those lunches for school, packing book bags, going through homework. And it's all about living in that routine. Does it sound boring? Sure it does. But not every single minute of every single day needs to be planned and accounted for. You can absolutely have spontaneous moments. You absolutely can do other things. But I'll tell you that being organized, efficient, and planning, you might find you have more time to do spontaneous things, like a walk on the beach. Oh, how romantic. It ain't. Listen, this is St. Patrick's Day, ladies and gentlemen. It is not Valentine's Day. So let's think about what I'm saying here. Let's all admit we could do a better job at planning somehow, some way. Somehow, some way. Even the best planners can refine and optimize what they're doing to a degree. To a degree. All right. So, wonderful St. Patrick's Day, the day that everyone on the planet is Irish. That's where we are today, 17 March 2025. This podcast drops, if I planned accordingly, at 1700 on purpose, 1700 Eastern Standard Time. Little play on numbers, right? 17th of March, 1700 hours Eastern Standard Time, which is, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, 5 p.m. for those of you that don't do military time. But who doesn't do military time in 2025? I thought everybody did. Oh, there's me being narrow-minded and thinking that everybody has the same lived experience I did, which was growing up with a dad who served in the Army. Wrong. You don't. Those of you that don't know military time, if the number is beyond the number 12, just subtract 12 and then you know what the time is. 1300 minus 12, 1. You guys get the drift. I want to thank y'all for joining me today on this special episode and allowing me to rant about planning, efficiency, so on and so forth. Please subscribe, share, download, because everyone deserves to partake in your guilty pleasure. Don't be greedy. Don't be selfish. Share. I'll be salty if you don't. This is the Salty Goddess Podcast, and I'm Ann Margaret Perry. Thank you for joining me. Go become more efficient, plan contingency plans, and I'll see y'all on Wednesday is 0500 Eastern Standard Time for my normal hump day delivery.